going on, everyone? It's the Brazos Sports crew here. I'm Travis Brown with Eagle with Alex Miller and Abigail Ochoa. Franklin wins their first ever state title in the 3A Division I championship here, beating Gunter 49-35 at AT&T Stadium. Let's start with Abigail. Abigail, it's a redemption. They were here last year. They weren't able to beat Canadian. They come back and get the job done. What were your initial thoughts from Franklin's big win today?
Yeah, that first half, it was really tight, like we talked about, but they were really able to kind of come together, finish, as they've been saying all season, in that second half, shut out Gunter in that fourth. Their offense really kind of showed out. Well, the offense that we've been seeing all season really showed out there in that second half, especially Malcolm Murphy and Bryson Washington. Once they got the blocking going there, those guys kind of ran away with it there, and really good to see them kind of finish after that 1 point loss last year.
Yeah, Alex, you were at field level shooting some highlights. What did you see from that angle in Franklin's big win?
Yeah, it was definitely a back and forth affair. And to me, for a while, I thought it was going to come down to the last possession. It was either going to be that or which team broke there in that second half. And fortunately for Franklin, it was Gunter that really had the big mistakes. And, once they opened up that 2-score lead, it was done. And the night that Malcolm Murphy had, that man's going to be grittying all the way home to Franklin tonight. Unbelievable performance. They had 0 passing yards. I saw a tweet from the good old Danny Davis from the Austin American Statesman. The last team I believed to have won a state championship without a single passing yard was Liberty Hill in 2007. We live in the day and age of throwing the football. Franklin themselves, it was a big deal when they went to the state 7-on-7 tournament this summer, and they just come out here and put on a clinic of how to run the slot T. Joe Hedrick isn't with us anymore, but he's smiling from the great beyond. So
yeah, the first team to not have a passing yard in a game, period, since Franklin in 2015 when they lost that state title game. Alex mentioned it. Passing is the name of the game nowadays in football, but Franklin didn't really necessarily have to face many passing offenses up until this point. That pistol kind of spread look that Gunter had gave them some fits, but they were able to kind of come back in the second half. You were at that Canadian game last year where the passing game kind of downed them. What was the difference between those two games, and how much more of a redemptive kind of quality is this win with how they were able to overcome that passing offense?
Yeah, I think when we look at the Canadian game, it really did last time come down to the last possession. Canadian was able to get control, and they won by, Franklin missed an extra point, and that's how they won 35-34. But against Gunter, Franklin's secondary wasn't able to get anything going, really, and I think that was the problem that we saw early. That was the reason for the 21-20 lead that Franklin had at halftime that was super tight. I felt like the game was pretty similar to the Canadian one when we look at as far as score. Franklin had a pretty down first half, which is hard to say considering they scored 21 points and Malcolm Murphy was having such a great game at that point. But looking at the season overall, that was a pretty down first half for them. And then, in the second half, it really comes, offenses are scoring back and forth. They're just kind of going for that. And I think really the difference was offense was able to get those 2 scores there, and the defense was like, okay, all we have to do is hold on at this point, and they were able to do that. Franklin's defense is good. The problem is they were letting go of those long passes. Gunter was able to take advantage of that. But I think once the offense got going there, Malcolm scored 2 times, I believe, back-to-back in that fourth quarter. It was kind of it for Gunter, like you said. They were kind of over at that point. So really the offense was able to kind of pick up the defense. And a lot of those players played 2 ways. So, you got a lot of people could argue that Malcolm deserved both the offensive and defensive player of the game, but he won one of them. So I think that was good enough for tonight. But it was a good overall performance from Franklin.
Franklin linebacker Colby Smith got the defensive MVP honors with 11 tackles and an interception early in the game. But like you said, it was all Bryson Washington and Malcolm Murphy in this game. The rushing attack, to me, looking up from the bird's eye view, it seemed like they went a little bit more to formations, whether it be power I or formations within that wing T, slot T base offense they like to do, that sent lead blockers into the fray early. Once they got some of those lead blockers going and didn't leave the running backs on an island, that's what kind of unlocked the defense there in the second half. What were you seeing from that run game in the second half, and also just how impressed were you with what Bryson and Malcolm were able to do in this game? Malcolm, of course, finishing 18 yards shy of the 3A state title game rushing record.
Yeah, I mean, Bryson Washington and Malcolm Murphy, I mean, those have been the guys all season. I mean, you could throw Bobby Washington in there, and they got other guys. But, I mean, when push comes to shove, those are your two guys. And Coach Fannin found a way to get them the ball time and time again. You know, what was funny is, you know, there were moments where Franklin would go out wide and kind of a spread set, and like, Gunter's coaches really kind of panicked and burned a couple of timeouts, when, in all reality, they should have been calling timeouts to figure out how to stop that run game, because that's really what did them in at the end. And yeah, I mean, the thing for me was, you could tell Franklin had been here. The mental fortitude that they had in that second half was sharp. I mean, there were moments where it looked like Gunter could really take a grasp of it. You know, Franklin had a couple of 3-and-outs. They got the 2-point conversion. When they tied it at 28, I was like, okay, that was when I really thought this was going to get down to the last possession. But the way that Franklin was able to have resolve and resiliency, that was the difference in my opinion, and it started with the way that Bryson Washington and Malcolm Murphy ran the ball. Of
course, we have to close with this. Their motto was finish this year. They were finally able to finish and get that state title. You saw what the scene was like on the field after last year's game, and then you were back out there. How does it compare, and what were some of those memorable sights and sounds from that celebration after the game?
Yeah, well, their cheers were a lot happier this season for sure. You know, last year was so heartbreaking because they had 9 great seniors, Seth Spiller being one of them, who really have carried the team, you know, the past few years for them. So it was really heartbreaking to see that come down to just a missed extra point. Seth Shamlin, who was the kicker last season, he's back this year as a senior. I mean, his redemption alone for this game, I'm sure, was amazing. I'm sure that was a lot of, you know, Coach Fannin said at the post-game press conference that this was a redemption for Seth after, you know, all the backlash that he got last year for missing that extra point. So I'm sure for him alone it was amazing. But I think overall for the town of Franklin and for the seniors this year, they have 19 who have just done so much for this program. I think it really meant a lot. Not to mention, Coach Fannin is also a Franklin native. He played for Franklin, and he was able to come back as a head coach. This is only his second year. I think we forget that a lot. This is only his second year as a head coach after taking over for Mike Hedrick, who was there for a long time. He gets the Lions to 2 back-to-back state title games and wins one